You are listening to Talking Images, the official podcast of icmforum.com. Welcome back, everyone. I'm Chris, and today Saul and I are sitting down with Stephanie Pham, star, producer, and co-owner of Art School Dropouts. I have just come from watching her stab a large group of human traffickers to death. But I will not let that intimidate me too much, as I'm really excited to hear all about their style of close to zero budget filmmaking. Over the last several years, they have created everything from meta comedies that just seem to love their limitations to hard-boiled, gritty martial arts shorts. The budget limitations have certainly not stopped them from getting creative and showing off their craft, even producing a feature-length film in the process and grabbing an HBO award. We'll hear all about how they get started, the fights in choreography, their martial arts inspirations, and far more practical questions of actual costs and if there's anything they just have not been able to do yet. We'll also hear about their upcoming projects, including their brand new Hush Hush production done almost entirely in VR. So there's a lot of exciting stuff to talk about today. And I'm also really happy to be joined by my co-host Saul, because my knowledge of martial arts films is passable at best. He may blush from this, but I don't think I'm exaggerating too much if I call him our resident Talking Images martial arts film expert. So just really happy to have you here, Saul.
Thanks, Chris. I don't think I'm really an expert on martial arts, although I've watched over 100 Hong Kong action movies, and I've watched over half the films on the Wei Zhongzi list of classic martial arts films. So I've seen quite a lot of martial arts films, but mainly more comedies. I've gone through most of Stephen Chow and Jackie Chan's available films. So I've seen quite a few, but I don't know if I really call myself an expert on it necessarily.
Well, more of an expert than me anyways. So if there's any references I'm not getting, you can step right up. And I think the Jackie Chan reference is also on point, because I've seen that Jackie Chan was one of Art School Dropouts' big inspirations, Stephanie. But anyways, so good to actually have you here. Before we get into anything else, there's one question I have been dying to ask, and that is if all of you are actually Art School Dropouts.
Hey guys, thanks for having me. I wish Joey was available to be on this podcast, but he's, a little bit busy right now. But yeah, actually, so Art School Dropouts is composed of myself and Joey Min. He is our director, creative head, editor, fight choreographer, just everything creative that you could think of. He handles all of it. He writes all of our scripts. But the funny thing is, none of us actually went to art school. Joey, actually, he went to MIT. I went to a science school, graduated with a pharmaceutical and healthcare business degree. So, none of us went to art school.
And none of you sound like you're dropouts either.
Yeah, no. I mean, stay in school, kids.
Well, I guess you may qualify as Art School Dropouts by simply not attending. And if your credentials ever get started, I suppose you could start some kind of online course and just drop out immediately. So
yeah, I guess that's one way.
But with that cleared up then, because I kind of got this idea that maybe you guys met each other at art school, for instance, and you just all got together and wanted to do this instead. But since that's not the case, how did Art School Dropouts actually get started?
So it's funny. So I actually joined in way later from the original birth of Art School Dropouts. Joey started it years ago, and originally it was a blog. He came up with a name because at the time, Film School Rejects was very popular. It's still popular today. And I guess he wanted to be very hipster. So he came up with Art School Dropouts. And then the blog became more of a YouTube channel because he wanted to do more filmmaking. And then I was actually going to school with a friend of his, and I'm a martial artist. They were looking for a martial artist, and it was something that I was interested in. So since I was already done school and I was already getting into acting, I actually met up with Joey and the rest of the gang and got to meet all of them. And then, so how it got started, Joey and I, we actually didn't. Well, Joey didn't really like me at first because he was going through like a moment where he was just kind of like, I hate women. He was going through a hard time with like a relationship. So we actually became best friends because the first day we met, he like just didn't want to talk to me. But then we almost got into a fight with, I guess, these like people at this bubble tea place. Like I already pissed Joey off, but then these people, they were just so rude. And Joey thinking like, oh, his boys are going to step up and like fight if need be. But no, he turned around and he just saw me and I was like getting ready to throw down if like, if it was going to happen. He was like, okay, best friend. And then it just kind of started from there. I started getting more involved in terms of like the producing and like planning and like the business side of things for Art School Dropouts.
That's quite the start of a friendship and a partnership.
Yeah, we're like best friends. We got each other's back for sure.
So I guess the channel was always aiming to do more martial arts type of filmmaking then, since you got involved specifically because you're a martial artist. What school of martial art are you from?
So I do Taekwondo. Joey is actually originally like he does a couple other martial arts as well, but he does Shaolin Kung Fu like originally from the temple. Yeah, he grew up in a temple and everything. He says it sucks.
Oh wow, that's quite the backstory.
Yeah, it would be so cool to have him on the podcast because like Joey is like so interesting. Like people just don't understand like all the stories that he has. But originally, Art School Dropouts, it's more of like a focus on filmmaking. For like, I don't know, I think 2 years, I want to say, I think it was probably like 2016, 2017. We started dabbling in terms of like making other types of content, like BuzzFeed type of thing, where we go out, check out restaurants and like different attractions and review them and comment on them. We also did like little martial arts highlight videos. We used to do like some gaming stuff. I used to do vlogs on the channel. A lot of the things that we do, it's like practice so that way we can prepare to make like bigger films. So a lot of our shorts, our sketches, it just kind of all ties in together to, make bigger things.
Something we've been wondering, and you might have already sort of alluded to this already because you said that you are a martial artist yourself, but just wondering if you're actually a fan of martial arts cinema growing up. Personally speaking, it's something which I only got into late in life. Actually, when I was growing up, I thought I hated action films because I wasn't into big explosions and I wasn't into, gunplay and whatever. But I just love how kinetic martial arts cinema is. So just wondering if you were a fan of martial arts cinema when you were growing up.
So I'm terrible with movie titles. So I am like, I can't recall many of them, but growing up, my dad used to go to like the flea market and he'll just buy a bundle of martial arts films and then we would just go home. And because I was training at the time with like my brother, my dad, he'll like play these movies. He's like, see, like you're supposed to do and like move like that. And I'm just like, what the dad? That's kung fu. I do taekwondo. That's totally different. And they're on wires, like they're flying around. I can't do that. But yeah, I grew up on it. My favorite is like Jet Li. He's my go-to.
You've probably answered maybe our next question a little bit already, but other than Jet Li, what martial arts films and stars have served as your biggest inspiration?
Ooh. So being a female martial artist trying to get into like the acting and action world, I want to say Moon Lee and Cynthia Rothrock. Like they're strong women. And I think it was great that like back in the day, women were portrayed just like very strong. I know like now there's like so many movies where it's just like women are leads and they're doing action, but people forget that in like Hong Kong films, we had Cynthia Rothrock, Moon Lee, all these like amazing women just like kicking butt. And I would say like it would be those.
Yeah, that's very interesting to hear because Yeah, the history of female martial artists isn't quite, I guess as extensive as male ones. There was Sheng Pei Pei, who did
Mm,
Come Drink With Me and some of the other films in the late 1960s. But yeah, definitely the biggest stars that have emerged from it do seem to be the male stars.
yeah, for sure.
Moving on to our next question. What can our listeners expect from you guys over at Art School Dropouts, and what videos should they be seeking out first?
Really hard. So I feel like our channel is kind of like it's like a hot pot. Like you get a little bit of this, you get a little bit of that. It's just like different things. But for the most part, we are martial arts filmmakers on YouTube. All of the content, all of the films that we make, we want it to be accessible and viewable for everyone for free. So what you can expect is a range from comedic sketches where it's not martial arts related to vlogs to short films where it's like either a comedic martial arts action or even a gritty martial arts action. We have web series. Typically, our web series are very much like comedic action. And I mean, randomly, we would just do like a music video. Like it's very much just a mixture of things. So it depends on like what you're looking for, but I would say overall expect martial arts, action comedy from our channel. I think a really good one to kind of like get started with is our little mini series that we did earlier this year. It's called The Legend of No Budget Zoro. This was just a little concept that Joey had come up with that expanded more than he had thought. We wanted to try shooting with an iPhone. In the filmmaking industry or community, a lot of times people say, like, if you're a filmmaker, you need a real camera. But with the technology that is available today, I don't think that that is really something that people need to focus on. If you have a phone and if you don't have the finances to get a quote unquote real camera, using a phone is perfectly fine. It also helps you practice your craft. So that's one of the reasons why we decided to shoot this little mini series with an iPhone. There was no lighting, there was no like lenses or anything like that. We just used the phone as is, and it was a no budget project.
I absolutely love hearing that because I think there's great potential for films that are shot on iPhones and iPads. I mean, I absolutely loved Unsane, which Steven Soderbergh did about 4 years ago.
I knew you'd mention that.
Yeah, well, it's an amazing film, but also, of course, Tangerine, which I think still stands up as Sean Baker's best film. That was a beautiful looking film shot on an iPhone. And, I actually teach kids for a living to make films using an iPad. So I think the technology is out there. And yeah, look, I agree. You don't need a fancy camera to be able to make a really good film.
Yeah, you don't need to.
And that's a really good tie over into getting into the more nitty gritty of the production as well. Because, like we said, you can make a film for almost any production values. And I haven't seen The Legend of No Virtual Story yet, but I definitely need to give that a look. But I have given some of your other recent action shorts a look, and I have to say that the change in production values from your early stuff, I mean, it's insane. I mean, what kind of budget are you actually bringing in there? Because in terms of cinematography and choreography, the quality seems really high.
Oh, well, thank you. So we actually currently shoot with a Sony A7 III. Our budget, so we also have a Patreon. Basically everything like financially that we make through our YouTube channel just goes right back out to our audience. So our Patreon, our Fractured Atlas, which is our tax deductible donation site. We also do a tutorial series for those that want to learn how to shoot and produce a fight scene on a budget, and also like safety wise, like, just being really safe on set because, people can get hurt. So all of that money that we make from even like merchandise, we put it right back into our projects. Some of the projects, depending on the project, it has a slightly bigger budget. We work very efficiently. We turn around our projects as fast as possible. Everything goes into pre-production. The more time you put into pre-production, the easier it is on production day. And planning wise, it like goes so much smoother and it cuts back on budget. We even have a series on our channel called Crafties for Cheap, because one of the aspects of filmmaking is that people forget that like food and feeding your crew is like extremely, extremely important. And yeah, it's great if you could buy pizza and like all of these things, but that adds up. If you can actually take the time and like basically meal prep for your cast and crew, it saves actually a lot of money. So that's like one of our other series, just to kind of like show people that they can work on a budget. There's a lot of different ways. I mean, multi-man fights, for example, you can have a bunch of extras, like even friends, to volunteer to look like there's a lot more bodies within the scene. But realistically, you could probably just do with like 3 to 4 stuntmen rather than hiring 20 stuntmen to do a fight scene. It just depends on how you shoot it. Our whole thing is like trying to create films as much as possible. We have so many stories to tell. Yeah, I mean, filmmaking is expensive, but we got to figure out a way to do it. And plus, with the pandemic right now, it makes it a lot more challenging. Paying for COVID tests, figuring out ways to make sure that everybody on set is safe.
What would you say are the biggest challenges when you're making zero to low budget short films and web series like this?
There's so many different challenges depending on the production. I think the hard parts of a production is if people cancel. Like that's really hard, rescheduling, doing reshoots or anything like that. Fortunately, we don't do that very often, if any. We work pretty well in terms of like problem solving on set. I like the challenge of problem solving. Yeah, I guess like that would probably like fall more so on Joey. He has the hard part, coming up with like the scripts, coming up with like the shots, the choreography, planning for it. Like that guy, he has like 2 to 4 hours of sleep a night, but it's part of it.
And I've seen you parody that in some of your web series too, like in season 2 of Nerf, when I think he's snoring through most of the first episode.
Yeah, so the series of our Nerf Assassin, it's very much us. If anything, I'm the one that's like consistently trying to find ways to like fund our projects, because you know for certain projects it costs a lot of money, so I'm always looking for it. Joey's like, all right, fine, I'll kind of like follow through with it and go along. But for the series, it's like the complete opposite. It's funny how Joey has like written it.
What would you say are the biggest differences in production from when you first started until now? Are there a lot of tricks you've learned to make things go more smoothly, or have things mainly stayed the same?
It has changed from like the start. When I first joined, I didn't really know too much about film production. So part of the learning process was, because I am an actress, I ended up being on like a lot of other people's productions, trying to see like how they run, taking what I like and just incorporating it into our productions. For example, our releases, all digital, our shot list, all digital. I don't like having paper on set. It just gets confusing. It's just a waste. So everything is done, if possible, digitally. So that's one thing that we have done. Another thing as well, Joey prior to me would actually create choreography on the spot, but he has a tendency to over choreograph, and the flow of the choreography, it still has a story at the end of the day. So it's a lot easier to do all of that in pre-production rather than on the day, because you have a better feel of what the final fight scene is going to look and feel like. So I would say like that's another difference that we have done. And that's something that we also kind of go over for our tutorial series, because all of our projects, all of our fight scenes, they all have a previs. We do not go into productions anymore just making choreography on the spot. It's too time consuming, and a lot of times the fight scenes, they don't flow and feel as good as if you were to actually plan it properly.
Yeah, I can imagine there could possibly even be safety concerns, no, if it's not properly planned out ahead of time.
Oh yeah, there is a safety issue, and plus, like if you want to have like certain resources, like, oh hey, if we're doing a bar fight scene, I mean, there's all these bottles around. Why wouldn't the character take a bottle and smash it on the person's head? We can't do that with a real bottle.
Yeah, exactly. Do you guys ever do genuinely dangerous stunts though, or is it very safe and well planned out?
We typically have everything like as safe and as well planned out as possible because it is a no budget production and it's for like films on YouTube. Like if we had a Hollywood budget, then I would be like, yeah, we could kind of push the limit a little bit more. But realistically, we don't ever want to put any of our stuntmen in like that scenario because stuntmen, that's their business. Like their body is how they get jobs. We can't put that at risk.
Yeah, exactly. So no one has ever been harmed on set then?
I can't say that. There has been accidents. One that is like just really funny and oh my gosh, in the moment it was just very scary. For our feature film, My Asian Auntie, season 2, Yes Auntie, there's a scene where it's in the gym and our friend G, he gets basically drop kicks. I run and Auntie, who is played by Joey, catches me and I drop kick G in the chest, which is what's supposed to happen. But for some reason, G decided to do a little hop. So I kicked him right in the nuts and I'm in the air. I can't control like where I am falling towards. So yeah, after that, we're like, all right, that's one and done. That's the cut. Like, we're not doing that again. Like, we're like, gee, why would you hop? And he's like, I don't know.
Oh, poor guy.
Yeah.
One of the questions which came to mind when I was watching some of your videos is it looks like most of them are shot with one camera at a time. So I was wondering how many cameras you usually have on set. And do you usually film from just one camera or do you sometimes have two pointing in different directions?
Well, we typically only shoot with one camera. We have, like I said, our Sony A7 III. We have it on a gimbal. We have it on like the Ronin, I think it's the S1. Because we do everything in pre-production, we don't shoot like Hollywood. Whereas Hollywood style, it's very much like, okay, you have like the whole entire fight choreography, all of the talents, they would do all the fight choreography, you have different camera angles. They would say like, okay, let's do that whole fight scene again. We're just going to change the angle and then shoot the whole thing. We're going to, okay, do it again, change it to a different angle. But for us, we already have all of the fight scenes like planned out in a way where it's like, all right, these first 4 moves, we already know what angle we want to choose. So we don't waste unnecessary time trying to get like a wide, a close up, a medium, like over the shoulder. We don't waste time on doing that because it, like if we already know what the final fight scene is going to look like because of our pre-production, then why do we need to shoot unnecessary stuff? And plus, it makes it easier on our stunt guys because that way they're not burning out. The way that Joey like choreographs and the way he directs the fight scenes, he wants the fight scenes to be done as fast as possible, like the moves, because we feel like it gives the more realistic reactions of someone in a fight. It's not like the big wind-ups. Like we want basically masters in their crafts to kind of like go at it.
Okay, yeah, that's very interesting to hear because I guess when I'm watching your films, what I'm thinking about is if it's all being shot from one camera, have you had issues with maintaining continuity when you're filming from one angle and then you take your camera and you're filming from a different angle?
No, not necessarily because I mean, especially in terms of fight scenes, Joey has kind of created his whole method. So let's just say we have the first cut, it is 4 moves. The next cut, it is a continuation of the last move and then the next 3-4 moves. So that way it's a lot easier for him to kind of cut the fight scenes together so it flows rather than just like, hey, there's like 4 moves, then you're going to do the next 4 moves. It's 4 moves, you're going to do the last move, which is going to be the start of the next choreography, and then it's the next like couple moves. So that way it's a lot easier to kind of like cut in between movements to have it flow.
Yeah, that sounds very logical and must make it much easier to edit when you don't have excess footage in there.
Yeah.
So something else I was also wondering about, not in the clips that I've watched, most of the clips that I've watched don't have a lot of dialogue in there. But when you are recording sound, do you tend to use a boom mic or do you tend to have mics on your actors?
So sound is something that we have been like really focusing on lately because we know like in the past our sound is terrible. So we have lav mics and a boom mic now, and because there's really just myself and Joey, and we also have our friend Angela on set. Oftentimes, she would help and like I guess BRPA, or she's one of the talents. Our mic is on a C stand, so his name is Mike. So that is our sound guy.
Okay. Yeah, you probably answered my next question, sort of, but I was just wondering also about sound effects and, how many of them are added on post production because, classic Hong Kong action films, you have all those swish sound effects which are constantly added on after every move in post. So I was wondering how much of it's post production, how much of it's actually recorded during the fight session.
Most, if not all, is in post production. And Joey, I mean, since he's been doing this for years, he has a huge library of different sound effects. And depending on the fight scene, he'll actually like ADR something. Like he'll just kind of stand there and hit a stick against like another stick for like an hour just to make some sounds.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely awesome. I mean, and some of the best sound effects are just made by doing, just random things like stabbing a watermelon or whatever, just have like really
Yeah.
interesting. Something I want to ask about, and you briefly touched on it earlier. A lot of the big like fantasy martial arts
Mhm.
films that came out from China and Hong Kong in the 60s and 70s did have a lot of wire work in there, like it's called wire fu, where basically you've got the actors like jumping between each other as they're kicking and fighting each other. So I was wondering if you guys have used wire work or whether it's something which you aspire to do.
We have not used wires yet. I would love to. It is something that is definitely kind of like on our bucket list. I want to fly around. I think that that's cool, you
Yeah, I can
know?
imagine you'll finally be doing the moves your father asked you to do.
Exactly. And it's like, just having like a flowy outfit and just kind of like flowing in the air with a sword. I think that that's really cool. We don't have the budget or the resources for that yet, but we would like to like one day do that.
Okay, awesome. That sounds like it'd be really fun. And the last question which I had in production, which is I guess sort of production, sort of not, but in terms of I guess wire work and other things where it's not quite happening in there. So on the special effects side, I was wondering what your opinion is on the kung fu films of somebody like Stephen Chow. If you think about Kung Fu Hustle or Shaolin Soccer, which are more about special effects, the nitty gritty of the action choreography. I was just wondering what your take on it is. Do you prefer action where it's all realistic? Do you like special effects being included as part of it? Do you think it's a good thing to mix them together or keep them separate?
Ooh. Personally, I love Stephen Chow movies. I think that they're so fun, and I think it really depends on the story. You can't have like a comedic, like Jackie Chan fight scene for something that's like super, super serious that involves like human trafficking, for example. I think it has to be really dependent on the story, but I really enjoy the fun martial arts action films that kind of make you want to go and learn martial arts. I think that that is kind of missing today. A lot of the films you see now is this it's just gritty, like people are just beating the crap out of each other. I don't know, I just like miss the old days where it's kind of like, whoa, that seems a little bit unrealistic, but that seems fun. Like, of course, if you were to punch someone in the face, they're not gonna like rub their face and just kind of look at you and just be like, hey, but they'll just start bleeding. But I think that that's like really fun, and that's something that I kind of miss seeing today because that's what kind of like made me really want to like keep training because it's like it's the art of martial arts, not just the violence of it.
Is that something you're incorporating with your community as well? Because you mentioned that you have these videos where you're teaching people how to craft things, how to make their own videos, etc. But do you also have like some kind of tutorial on martial arts to get your audience invested and interested in taking up a martial arts sport?
I don't, but Angela Jordan, check her out. Her YouTube channel is AJ Kick 101. She is a martial artist and she teaches martial arts. I really want to emphasize that our channel, like our production, Art School Dropouts, we teach the filmmaking side of like how we create our films. We don't do the stunts. We don't teach stunts. There's plenty of stunt schools that are like very well known that people can like learn and train at. I think that is like way better to learn from stunt people. But if people are interested in learning like the filmmaking side of how we do our fight scenes, then like definitely check us out and like check out our tutorials. But if you want to learn martial arts, the best way is to just go to a school, check them out, or check out AJ Kick 101. She has like, I think a tutorial series coming soon actually. But her Patreon, for example, like they do classes. She does like classes on Instagram. So that's a great way for people to like kind of get started.
Yeah, that's a good shout out, and probably best for people to take lessons from actual stunt doubles and actual people with that kind of experience, just in case.
Oh yeah, for sure.
But obviously, you are producing your videos for YouTube, and you said you have a lot of content there, including vlogs, or even some reviews of restaurants, etc. So, how are you liking producing short films and web series for YouTube, and how would you say your relationship is with your audience?
I love producing. I love the challenge. I love the problem solving. Right now, like I'm on this whole thing where I really want us to kind of keep producing features. I think that is a lot better in terms of like storytelling. So it's not just fight scene centric, but it's also narrative. I do miss our like little comedic sketches. So I really want to get back to that. But yeah, I want to say like, I really want to focus on that side of producing. In terms of our relationship with our audience, I want to say it's amazing. So we have a Discord server and it's great. We get to talk to our audience, and like there's a Patreon only section as well where people can actually watch Joey as he's storyboarding or ask questions. We do a monthly hangout. We all like kind of like get together, hang out, talk about things. They have this inside joke right now where it's like #StabGang because of this shirt that was available for a limited time, and I took it down, and it was like a little chibi version of me with a knife. And it just says stab. It's just like our community is amazing, and I love that we have an opportunity to interact with our audience. And like our Patreon, like I try to do so much for our patrons on there to kind of give them that producer feel. A lot of times people who are just audience people or fans or just, movie watchers, movie lovers, they never get to actually feel like they're producers. So during the pandemic, one of the ideas that we had come up with was the 360-degree behind the scene live streams. So these are like 20 to 40 minute long live streams where we have our 360 cam up and people are able to watch on set as if they were there with us. And like that's just something that's really cool. It's something that we're able to do like during the pandemic. Everyone's safe, and literally our audience, they can see everything. One of the productions, Joey ended up actually like breaking one of his toes by accident because of Angela. Ooh. Yeah, and he left the room, he wrapped it, he came back, and our audience was just like, hey, did Joey just break his toe? What's on his foot? It's like wrapped up. I think he broke his toe. I'm like, dang, you guys see that? Really? So it's really cool. And I think like having that capability of really like trying to bring our audience on set with us is something that's very unique to our production.
I mean, I'm slightly more concerned that Joey just went and wrapped up a broken toe instead of immediately going to the ER. But aside from that,
it's the Shaolin training. They had to break all his toes anyway, so he's like, this is like nothing. And I'm like, geez, like Joey is like low key a badass, and people don't understand that.
That's really impressive. Did it go back to the fight scene as well, or what happened after that?
Well, fortunately for us, we were just on the production side. So he was directing and he was just moving lights, and I was on camera, so I was just shooting. So yeah, it wasn't anything too crazy, but he still had to like show the choreography. Thankfully, it wasn't too many kicks, but yeah.
Yeah, that's amazing too. That possibly biggest injury on set then didn't actually come from one of the stuntmen, it came from the director.
Yep, pretty much.
It's really exciting to hear that you're thinking about making more feature films. Would they be more of the comedic style of My Asian Auntie, or would it be more in line with the more dark and gritty shorts you've been putting out lately?
It kind of is like a mixed bag. So we have a couple scripts already in terms of like features, but we're just kind of waiting on like budget, getting things together before we can produce it. So right now, because I mean, I don't mind sharing this news because it is a hush hush project, but our current feature, it's mostly shot in VR. It is narrative and it's slightly comedic, but it's not like a true comedy, but it is also action. It is just definitely different. We're always trying to do something different. So who knows? We could do something super like gritty or something super comedic. But I think with right now, how everything is going on with the world, we kind of lean towards more of the comedy because it's a nice break for everyone when they're watching.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I didn't actually realize that the VR project was going to be a feature. So that's amazing. How much can you share with us about that project?
So it's about, I want to say, I think we have like a third of the project done. It's taking a lot longer than we had hoped, but this is our first, I guess, true feature since My Asian Auntie. The feature is called Player Agency, and the short synopsis is this character, after losing his job of 10 years, Ken falls into a depression. His college friend, Joey, however, wants to help him in the only way he knows how, which is to guide him through a role-playing adventure game in virtual reality to get his like confidence back. So they quest through like the realm ruled by a Lich King, and Ken has to like battle his demons internally and virtually to like kind of take back his life. So that's kind of like the short synopsis. We have been like releasing some like little clips here and there for our patrons on Patreon, but it is actually shot through Rec Room, which is similar to VR chat, but Rec Room got kind of like a Lego aesthetic. There has been a lot of challenges with that like production process just because we're using something that's totally new to us, and you're using a camera that literally only has like one focal length, which is just super wide. So try to be creative, and it's a lot of like building rigs in the game. But what's really cool is that it gives us like an idea. It's kind of like if one day we were given like a crazy like Hollywood budget, we are capable of working with it because we are thinking way outside the box with this project. Like certain shots that you would never be able to do. We don't have access to a helicopter or a castle, but we can do that in game. And it's awesome. I don't know how to rent a helicopter, but we can do it in the game. So it's like, it's really cool. But yeah, like it's definitely like gotten our creative juices out and really challenges us in terms of like trying to make this whole feature.
And that's really interesting too, that you're essentially creating this feature film from a game. So you're coming in there with a relatively low budget, and you're still able to get VR graphics into your film and build a film all around it. So that's really outside the box, yeah. I'd say. It's
yeah. It's definitely a Joey idea. Originally, we were working on a different script, and then Joey, he spent like, I guess behind the scenes, like a month writing the script, and he's like, "Hey, Steph, I have this idea. Don't hate me, but like, I want to shoot a film in VR." And I'm like, what? Okay. He's like, "It'll be really cool. We'll still do fight scenes. It's like very narrative, but it's a whole feature. I have it planned. I'll make the sets, I'll make the props, I'll make the weapons, I'll make everything. And I'm like, holy crap. Okay. So Joey, he'll spend like so much time just building sets. It's just really, really cool what he's able to do in this game. And like, even though the graphics, it looks very childish, it's still like working with like essentially no budget. And like, for example, we need people to just like be bad guys. That's all Joey. Like, we don't need to hire people. The only budget is within the game because each set has a specific ink amount. So like we have to work within that ink amount. But that's like the only budget that's like really on there, and it's really cool, and I hope it's something that people would really enjoy and just kind of get past the first initial stage of like, wow, this looks very childish, but the story is very wholesome.
For the kind of film this would be, that makes complete sense too, because you're stepping into virtual reality. No one said that virtual reality had to look spectacular, especially because it's an adventure game of sorts. So I mean, you can, it's very fitting.
Yeah.
So I think we learned a lot about Art School Dropouts and like just your passion for your approach to filmmaking at this point, and just the capacity of Joey to simply get no sleep whatsoever, which is just unbelievable, possibly unhealthy. So check in on him with that. Maybe this.
Oh yeah, for sure. Our audience, they're constantly like, "Hey, did you guys get enough sleep?" We used to be like hashtag Team No Sleep, and I was like, "Yo, we can't do that anymore. Like, we can't. We're getting old. Like, that just doesn't work with our bodies."
Yeah, stay safe. Hopefully, Joey will take this opportunity to rest up properly.
Oh, yeah.
I think my final question then would just be, is there anything else you can tell us about Art School Dropouts' future? Are there any other upcoming projects, or is just all of your attention right now on this VR film? That sounds like your biggest project to date.
Oh my gosh, we have so much in the future. It's everybody's probably like, this is so much information. What is even happening with Art School Dropouts? But so besides the VR film, we're also in the process, like we get hired out to work on other people's productions. So we're kind of like also doing that. We have another web series that we want to produce, hopefully starting this fall or maybe next year, just because of like the weather. And then we want to write another feature that we did start writing, but then Joey got distracted with the whole VR concept. So then we had to take a back burner on that. And then hopefully these two other features that we have in terms of like script wise, they're ready to go. I just need to find out when we can start producing it because we have so many ideas. We're constantly making stuff. So if you guys want to see like what we're up to, check us out at like Art School Dropouts. We're constantly creating and we just love it.
Yeah, that's the feeling I get from speaking to you as well. I can really feel that passion, and I'm definitely gonna be checking out your feature film because that's a new one for sure.
Yeah, it's different, and I think the rise with like VR films right now is like kind of getting up there. I think I saw on HBO Max the VR chat documentary is like on there. There's a growing market for it, but I think the things you can do in VR is actually really cool.
Yeah, all the listeners should definitely be looking forward to it. Do you want to shout out any social media channels or anything else before we finish this up?
So if you guys are interested in learning more about us, I know it's kind of like a mixed bag in terms of like what we're doing. It's a lot of stuff, but you could check out our website, artschooldropouts.com. You could check out our YouTube channel, our Patreon. We have a Discord server. Basically everything you can find is on our website. So let's just leave it at that. That would be a lot easier for everyone than like, wait, what did she say? Oh, this and that and this. We're basically everywhere but TikTok.
Oh, right. Not on TikTok.
Yeah, I don't know. We'll probably get there one day, but right now it's just like it's so hard for just Joy and myself to manage everything.
Yeah, I can imagine that man does not need less sleep, and probably not you either.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much for coming on, Stephanie. And to all of the listeners, remember that if there is one piece of art school dropout work you should check out, it is the, what's it called again?
The Legend of the No Budget Zorro. Yeah.
And I'll be checking that out as well. So thank you so much again, Stephanie.
Oh, thank you guys so much for having me. Hopefully next time I can have Joey on here with you guys.
That would definitely be great. But it's been a pleasure speaking to you as well. And I hope our listeners have also enjoyed listening in and feel tempted to check out Art School Dropouts' work. So thank you so much for listening and join us again soon. You have been listening to Talking Images, the official podcast of icmforum.com.